Welcome to This Week in Coworking, where industry leaders get succinct, actionable insights.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another This Week in Coworking weekly recap. It's a slightly different setup this week. I am now in Where are we?
We're in Huntingburg, Indiana.
We're in Huntingburg, Indiana, and I am joined by the amazing Wesley Edmonds. We are sitting inside one of the beautiful studios or showrooms here in Huntingburg, in Indiana.
Nailed it.
Yes, perfect. And we're doing a special this week. We're still going to do a recap. We're still going to talk about some of the news. But before we do, how are you, Wesley?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me back this week. I'm really excited that we've had the opportunity to sponsor This Week in Coworking. This week, it's been really fun because this is, I still say maybe 2.5 years, 3 years in, I still feel really new to the coworking flex space in general. And so to be a part of This Week in Coworking means a lot to me. I've been a follower for a long time, so thanks for having me here. And it's been fun. We've had a couple days in Indiana together with a great crew, just letting you guys see a little bit behind the curtain of what OFS is, who we are, what we do. And then also I've had a chance just soaking in all the things that you guys, the questions you ask, the comments you have, the way that you see the furniture in fresh set of eyes has been really educational for me too. So it's been really fun.
Well, thank you again for having us. It is delightful to be here. It's slightly rainy right now, but it has been a beautiful day yesterday, so we had a fantastic time. But you did say you sponsored the newsletter, and I'm going to go into a little bit about what we saw here in a little bit. But in the newsletter this week, we promoted the podcast that we put out on Monday. For folks who maybe haven't heard it yet, what are the key takeaways from our discussion that we just released on Monday?
Yeah, I'd love for people to take away more than anything that it's an open, honest conversation between the two of us about what contract furniture is and what it means. I think we all get kind of locked into our industry jargon, right? You get used to the terminology. And so when I throw around phrases like commercial workspace or contract furniture, I know what that means. And you asked really good questions like, okay, but what the heck is that? And so I think we were able to have a really great open conversation about high level. What does it even mean to be a contract furniture manufacturer? Like, why contract? And then we went into why it does matter for those listeners of yours who are owners and operators of flex space or in the flex space in some way. They get to learn a little bit from me, I hope, about what it means and why we're passionate about the testing we do, the warranties that we hold, and the sustainability story that really matters to us, and how some of that, a lot of that is very different than the big box retailer or some of the e-commerce brands that tend to be more frequent when you get to a quick furnishing a space, and how you don't have to sacrifice lead time, you don't have to sacrifice quality, and you really don't even have to sacrifice your budget all the time to get really nice things. And so that's what I would hope people can get out of that conversation. It was just honest and open, and I really enjoyed it.
You said that you hope people learn. I learn a lot on not only what contract furniture is, but also that pricing on websites doesn't matter.
Totally.
It's all about kind of the relationship you have, the kind of bigger projects you think about, and that's what affects the actual price, which is something I definitely did not know about. All the spaces I ever ran were pre-furnished.
Yes.
So I just took over kind of abandoned offices that were gorgeous, so I never had to think about the furniture. But I know a lot of our listeners, this is one of the things that is one of the biggest line items on starting a new space. So absolutely, highly appreciate you joining me for that, sponsoring this week, and hopefully folks can go and listen to that. Should we dive into some of the news this week?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So in the newsletter this week, we shared that Industrious is doing a pretty interesting deal with the Bright Line, not only activating co-working spaces in train stations, but also in some of the carriages. Now, I know that Room and OFS were part of some of that. What are your thoughts around it? Like, how excited are you about co-working in trains?
Yeah, I think that is just, in fact, we had this really cool conversation prior to you and me talking right now with some of the other guests that are here, talking about the misunderstanding around the flex space. And I think a lot of people, maybe not necessarily your listeners, but maybe those that come to find you through OFS, are more experienced in workplace, and they think traditional office, and what that means to them is when you say co-working, they picture a WeWork model. They picture, maybe they're familiar with Industrious. Most probably are at this point. They're thinking long hallways, glass fronts, doors, pack them in, a couple phone booths, a couple of shared conferences, and a really cool coffee center. That's what they're thinking. Not only is that only one of many types of co-working flex spaces. But to show up at a train station, I think doubles down on the fact that flex space is human-centered. It exists to bring work to people where they are. And so a train station is a place where people might sit and wait for a long time. Or of course, on the train, you've got an hour, 3 hours to just sit there and tap into the Wi-Fi. But why have to sit in that uncomfortable vinyl covered seat the whole time? You know, what if you could get the view, get the fun atmosphere of a train, but also get the vibe of a co-working place? It was really cool to be able to be a part of that. And that happened, obviously, this week.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it did. And for them to invite room, we have a great relationship with Industrious. We have long been putting phone booths in their spaces and some of our meeting rooms and focus rooms. And so for them to ask us to join this activation and this partnership between Brightline and Industrious is really neat. We look forward to sharing some of the photography too, some of the just images of phone booths being used in a space. It's inherent, right? Not all product people understand how to use them. And this one, just people are like, oh, phone booth, I get that. I need it. They walk right in and start using it. So it's been really great.
And it's absolutely something we're seeing like across the trends, right? It's less about, as you're saying, just a workspace that people have to go to, and now becoming an ecosystem of places from which you can do different types of work. And yes, for when I was in the UK, a lot of my like traveling around was on trains. Not so much here in the US for other reasons, but it's interesting to think about what does it look like to activate a city center? What does look like to activate a train station, the train, and then when you get off at the other city, you're going to work somewhere when you get there as well. So it becomes this living ecosystem of work. And on the kind of co-working side, the flexible work side, that fluid experience of being able to check in, check out, use as you need different kind of workstations. But on the furniture side, there's a lot that has to go into that. It has to be uniform. You can't just have a funky sofa in the middle of a carriage and be like, go work there with your laptop.
That's exactly right. You have to mix that functionality with the ease of use, the welcoming aspect of it. It needs to feel like a place you want to be, and a piece of furniture you want to sit on. It feels comfortable. It feels inviting. It also needs to be train appropriate. You need to know where you are, know your audience. And so to be a part of that and help them launch a new way of thinking about flex space is very, very interesting. I hope I'm sure we will learn a lot out of this activation.
Well, I look forward to sharing those photos as soon as you're ready to get them out there. Let us know. We'll share them on the newsletter and on our YouTube and podcast channels. But I want to take a little bit of a turn. We saw in the newsletter 2 different stories around AI and automation. One coming out of Visa, who built 3 new fundamental building blocks to allow agents to do transactions on behalf of people. I personally believe this is going to become a very big way of how not only people but organizations acquire flex space. That their systems know where they have to be. They know where their kids' soccer is. It's going to go in and book the meeting rooms, book the spaces, get them access without them having to interact with a human being. And when they get there, they can just focus on the community or the people, the work they need to do. So I think that's going to be a big piece. This other one is Cody, who were a office as a service company. They've now pivoted to becoming like a AI assistant for running offices. So very interesting story. But there's this underlying trend. And I know it's an underlying trend because tomorrow, or today, whenever you're listening to this, on Friday this week, we're dropping our deep dive into AI agents for co-working spaces. So definitely check that out wherever you're listening to this. But I want to bring it full circle to something we saw here in this village, this town.
Village. I'm adopting that from now on. This village, often known as Huntingburg, Indiana.
That one, and it is a fantastic town. But one thing we did see here was how automation was changing how furniture was being built. We saw, I'm not sure how much of this is secret, but we saw a pretty cool factory where everything was pretty much automated. A team of 3 being able to do the work of many more. But when we discussed with the folks on the factory floor, is this taking away jobs? Is it not? What we found was it wasn't taking away jobs because there was no one to fill those jobs. It was just automating the work that they couldn't find people to fill and creating new jobs due to higher output. What are your thoughts around automation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at first, a lot of people get really scared when AI is still a new term. We know how it can work for us. In fact, we were just talking right before we started recording about how it can make a vacation itinerary for you. It can maximize your time at Disney World. It can do a lot of really cool things. And we're getting more comfortable with that. But when it gets to these like really big jobs, that feels scary. It feels really daunting. And I think a lot of people worry that the humanness of manufacturing is going to leave when we bring in AI automation. And it's been quite the opposite. For us, we found that what we're trying to do is decrease our lead times, which is always something at least most manufacturers are working towards, right? To be able to get product to you faster. But if we can maximize our output, if we can really get to the right product, have it machined as quickly as possible, get it AI driven in the sense that it's optimized. The sheet of laminate we're using is being optimized. It's running through the machine in a quarter of the time it used to take. The factory manager mentioned to us too that we're seeing so much less damage because of the lack of handling. It's going through machines that have all of these. It's been designed to be very soft touch and all that. So by the time it gets in a box on its way to you, it has barely touched anything in order to get accidentally scratched or anything like that. So it's really not taking the humanness out of it at all. It's maximizing our output so that we can then, as you mentioned, get more people behind the parts that need that human touch. We also walked through the upholstery plant and the cut and sew plant, and it's covered up in humans who I actually learned, I had never heard this before, that the sewing job is one of the most highly sought after roles in the entire organization and all furniture manufacturers because it's a lost art. A lot of people are losing either the skill or the want to learn how to hand upholster these pieces. And that's still how we do it. So if you can maximize the output and then get more people behind the efficiency and the time spent on those hand touch moments, you don't lose the humanness of it. You just get to the human faster.
And you could do more of it with less waste. And that's
Yeah,
that's a fantastic output. So I want to go into another piece that's technological, but also furniture based. And we saw an update coming out of Microsoft, their new Teams product. If you have a Teams connected device, if you sit down at a specific desk and you plug it into a dock, it automatically books the room for you. How is OFS kind of thinking around the kind of like technology side of this? Because obviously we're living in like a more interconnected world than ever before. How big does technology play into the pieces that you put into the offices?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a really huge part of what we think about really constantly. And I find that when I'm talking to clients about that, we ironically don't build in technology into almost any of our products because of the rate of change of technology. And so we found that when we do build in technology or a specific type of program, inevitably that's going to be the one program that an end user doesn't want to use, or that it eliminates clients from our ability to reach out to them because that's not what they want to use, or it's outdated in 6 months. And so we are really careful about how we integrate the physical aspects of the technology, and we instead focus on power and how we can bring power to as many pieces as possible. Almost every lounge collection we have has the option to be powered. But again, it's generic power, right? And so we have these freestanding mobile power devices, so you can bring power to any place in a floor plan. It's really easy to access the power, and then you bring the technology. So the technology is up to your AV team, your IT team, your tech squad, you name it. They get to pick the technology, they plug it in to the piece, and it automatically works the way that you want it to work. And that's really taken a couple years. We had to pivot. We used to design the product, and then it'd be like, all right, so let's get this thing powered up. Let's figure out where we want power to go. And with a lot of our recent launches, we've started with power. So it's a table collection. We're like, okay, if we're going to have power in the tabletop, it needs to run cleanly up the leg. No one wants to see the cables. What about the underside? What if we did this? And we've gotten really specific about the power, and then the aesthetic of the product follows. And so we're really kind of leading with the way that it coordinates with technology. But yes, we would like for you to bring your technology to the table. We don't want to tell you what to do.
I completely get that. And I was just at the R&D center, and I completely agree that they always think about how is the power going to get into this unit, but not be seen.
Yeah.
I'm as a technologist, that's the way I think technology should be anyway. It should just work. You should be able to bring your own modules and make it work for your organization, not get a cookie cutter approach of this is what we think the best technology is. So completely agree with that strategy. Before we hop out, I want to just do two quick mentions. We did see that in Grand Rapids, the team at Bamboo, they secured $3.65 million in funding and both debt and grants to rejuvenate an old cinema, an old building, an old museum, I believe it was. So congratulations to the team there. And a quick congratulations to Anne and the team at the shop in Salt Lake City for turning 4. Thank you very much for joining me, and thank you for having me here in this fantastic setting and to see what is happening behind the scenes at OFS.
Yeah, thanks so much, Hector. It's been a pleasure.
Make sure you subscribe. And if you have not read the newsletter, thisweekincoworking.com, we are in week 19.